Welcome to the Digital Dreaming Off the Ground podcast. It is your host, Asif Ali, joined today with my co-host for the most, number 24, Cortez Branch Jr., and we are here to preview this week's NFL action, including the monster Monday night game against Baltimore, the two best teams in the AFC and the NFC. Before we get into that, let's kind of recap this last weekend. Obviously, there was a lot of big kind of headlines. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys game blown out by the Bills. The Niners obviously dominating over the Cardinals. That wasn't really a headline, but you also had, Miami winning. You also had, so actually, kind of Cortez, kind of what stuck out to you most over the last weekend for the NFL action?
Backup quarterbacks.
Hmm.
Backup quarterbacks are, for the most part, they're extremely competent this year. Whether they're in Cleveland or anywhere else, like it seems like a lot of guys have become interchangeable.
Hmm.
And not saying that starting talent is negotiable because it's not, but the guys have been able to get through the game and even get some wins.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, let's talk about Jake Browning, right? I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals, right? I mean, he's continuing that streak. I think he's won three consecutive. He's 3-1. Tommy DeVito got blown out by the Saints over the last weekend, and the Saints
Right.
last night lost to the Rams. But that was a very good matchup near the end. 30-22. It was a one possession game near the end of that game. So Tommy DeVito's looking great. Jake Browning, obviously, full supply product. Look, Washington Huskies all time passing yards leader, looking great. So I think, like to your point, I agree. It's been the backup for the year of the backup quarterback. You've seen a lot of guys step in. And, you look at Cleveland Browns, for example, they're on their fourth quarterback with Joe Flacco, and he's basically leading them. I think he's averaging 300 yards per game over the last three games. So
Put up 212 against my Bears in the fourth quarter.
Oh, we
I
got to
should have
talk. So
known.
actually, that's what stuck out. Look, let's talk about the Bears and Browns game because that was the game. Okay, so you're a Bears fan. I've been to Soldier Field. I love the Bears. They're like my second adopted team. If not, if I was an Irish fan. Your thoughts on that last play? Mooney dropping that ball and when he sat down right into his hands. Obviously, I mean, me,
Two hands.
two hands, right? I've never played in the NFL, so I don't know what it's like and to be a multi-million-dollar athlete, but my expectation is, if you're getting paid millions of dollars, you're supposed to make those catches. So talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, I can tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt that the Chicago Bears have lost 4 games when they were up 2 scores with only 5 minutes left in the
Mm-hmm.
game. I can
Mm-hmm.
tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt that that is not a quarterback problem. That's not even a personnel problem. That's a coaching problem. 4 games, 5 games of close games, 5 close games, and 4 games where they had 2 scores under 5 minutes, giving up an average of 200 yards in the fourth quarter to all of these teams. That's a coaching problem. That's not a personnel problem when you get 3 picks in a game. It's not a personnel problem when you get 2 picks and 2 forced fumbles. It's not a personnel problem when the defense is giving you the ball on the 7, 8, 9 yard line. That's not a personnel problem. It's not a personnel problem if you're up 24-12 in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left. It's not a personnel problem. You're up 17-10 or 17-3, 17-7. All of these different scores that the Bears have had and end up losing these games. Whose fault is that? It's only what's a coaching problem? They're blaming Justin Fields because it's an easy scapegoat to blame a quarterback when it's a quarterback-rich draft. So you want to blame Justin Fields? Don't blame Justin Fields. Blame the 4 guys that dropped deep balls. Dropped. Well, one of them deflected. Did he hit both? Did they hit the receiver in 2 hands? Yes. What is a receiver's job on the football field? To receive the ball. If it hits you in 2 hands, you catch it. You were a receiver for some time. What was the rule?
Never drop the ball. And pinky's tight. Like Coach Double will say, pinky's tight and windows open, right? And I think, basically when the ball is coming, on your lap, and I mean, not me saying this, but Keyshawn Johnson saying this on Undisputed this week. He said, Mooney was literally sitting down and the ball was literally in his hand, and he should have came up with that, right? Because you're not going to get a better ball like that on a Hail Mary.
He flipped it to another player. Look, I'm not coming down on you, Mooney, because I know how hard it is to play football, especially when you play at high levels. And you're playing in the NFL, which is considered the greatest level of football. And I'm not trying to jump down in your throat, but man, there are some plays that will show that you're a Hall of Fame caliber player. and you'll be remembered forever. And then there are some plays that you miss, and you're like, this is going to define me for the rest of my career. I want to see what you do afterwards. But let me just say that if the Bears win that game, they would have cruised into the playoffs. And there's no doubt in my mind they would have been able to cruise into the playoffs, especially coming over a very close game against Detroit and then beating Detroit, turning around and beating Detroit, beating Minnesota, beating Cleveland would have been the icing on the cake after beating Green Bay. So that would have been great. And so we're not going to get to see a Bears playoff run this year, which would have been the optimal year to have a Bears playoff run, considering that they already have a bunch of first round and second round draft picks at their disposal. So there's no need to worry about seeding. This would have been the year that you guys would have made a run based on the talent that you had, talent that you picked up, and the and the the youth of the team. Instead, we're worrying about, are we going to trade our quarterback who can be great, has shown greatness, has shown the ability to lead a team. The players are behind him. Now you shift gears. They're not worried about what Browning's doing in Cleveland. Joe Burrow supports him. Because sometimes you have to worry about the fact that I want to win football games more than I want to worry about, who's going to be doing this, who's going to be. And Joe Burrow's out for the season. Everybody knows Joe Burrow is not leaving Cincinnati. I don't see Cincinnati trading Joe Burrow away. I don't see him trading. Browning, on the other hand, just made a statement on that he deserves to be at the head of somebody's team.
Absolutely. And I think kind of to your point, right? I mean, that's just, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, when you're in the NFL and you have those balls, those 50-50, it's not even 50-50 at that point. That's literally 100% chance of, if you have it hit you in the chest, you need to haul it in, to win the game. So I think that's kind of
hands, ball in his lap, sitting down. I don't think I'll get over that one for a while.
No, absolutely not. No, and for good reason. So, I mean, to your point, obviously Jake Browning, and so I want to talk about now. I mean, that was pretty much the game of this last weekend. I want to talk about this coming weekend. And let's talk about the MVP discussion, because when we were last on here, not this past Monday, but the previous Monday, I said Dak Prescott was my choice for MVP. Now all the odds have basically have had number 13, Brock Purdy. That's right, Mr. Relevant, jump up in the odds as the favorite for MVP, followed very closely behind by Mr. Incredible Lamar Jackson, and number 5th or 6th in the odds is number 23 Christian McCaffrey. So Tom Brady, Steve Young have both opined on their MVP kind of discussion. Tom Brady has basically said that Christian McCaffrey deserves the MVP because the offense is flow through him. But I mean, my counter to that, Tom Brady is the GOAT, is that you saw how bad the Niners played last year without Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game. I think the offense kind of goes through Brock Purdy, and if without Brock Purdy, and that's been the Niners' Achilles heel for the past 20 years. And finally, this season, we're going to probably have, and you texted me this, right? That Brock Purdy basically he's on pace to break the Niners franchise passing yards record. He's also on pace to set the Niners franchise single season touchdown record. He's also on pace to set the Niners single season completion percentage record. He's also on pace to set the Niners passer rating record within a single season. So, I mean, Christian McCaffrey's having a great season, no doubt. Christian McCaffrey's already in the record books, tying the most consecutive games with a touchdown streak, by a running back, right? But he's also, not having the same level of production, I want to say, per game, in the sense that he is having phenomenal games, averaging 92 yards per game. He's on pace to get over 1,500 or almost close to 1,600 rushing yards and basically win the rushing title crown. So the Niners are on pace to finally, in the first time in NFL history, have the NFL rushing yards leader as well as the NFL passing yards leader potentially. Now, Brock is still behind Tua, and Tyreek Hill is having an MVP campaign. So Tyreek Hill, obviously, I mean, logic would tell you that, granted that, and we're going to talk about the Bills and the Cowboys and the Dolphins game coming up on Sunday. But in my opinion, the MVP race comes down to Brock and Christian. I have no problem if Christian wins it, but it needs to be one of those two. I personally, like I said on the last episode, I would not be shocked if Brock comes away with it. And at this point, I would be shocked if Brock is not the favorite. And if he continues this level of production, especially on Monday night, like we said last week, this game on Monday between Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy, the number one seed in the AFC and the number one seed in the NFC, is gonna determine the MVP vote and potentially the seeding as well, for the playoffs. So talk to me about what you think about the MVP discussion and what you're expecting for this Monday night matchup between Baltimore and San Francisco.
Well, for starters, I'm gonna go out on a crazy limb here, and I'm gonna say, I think it would be really cool if a running back won the MVP. I do. I
I'm
don't
sure.
think
I'm
that.
sure you would.
I don't think that Christian McCaffrey is going to win the MVP,
Right.
and I do not think that it realistically, that any running back in 2023 or in the next couple of years is going to win the MVP. The reason why I say this is, as a running back, the league doesn't care that much about us,
Right.
and because the league doesn't care about us, and they see us as replaceable bulldozers, then that's why they're going to give the MVP to someone who seems to be the face of the franchise, and that is Brock Purdy. And I think that Brock has done enough and above to earn an MVP. I think that if Brock makes it to the NFC title game, we're not talking about the Super Bowl, but if they can make it to the NFC title game 2 years in a row, that means this kid's only seen NFC title games.
At the age of 24, like your number on your hat, 24 years old. Bob Brady will be 24 in a few weeks, or I guess next week. At the age of, he's only 23 years old. He's going to be 24 next week. If he's able to make the NFC Championship game, that's two by the age of 24. That's incredible, right? I mean, that's an incredible feat. And
I
I do,
remember they were saying the same thing about Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
And they were saying that Patrick Mahomes isn't going to get there, and Patrick Mahomes isn't. But look at what Patrick Mahomes has done since two Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl victories. I believe 3 Super Bowls,
yep,
two Super
three.
Bowl victories, and a bunch of AFC title games, AFC NFC title, NFC title games. He's gone there and he's done those things.
Yeah,
And I just have to say that if you're going to be a person who doesn't understand how the sport is played, to say that. But right now, it's all about the quarterback play.
hmm
And, if you're looking at MVPs, you're going to look at the give it to quarterbacks. And that's just how it goes. And I understand how people can be upset about that, but this is not a running back driven league. This is not a receiver driven league. This is a quarterback driven league. They have the most rules made to protect them. They have the least amount of leniency on play against the quarterback, and they have the most protection and face time when it comes to the media. If you're going to give an MVP out, you want to give it to the highest profile player on the team. And that's not Christian McCaffrey. That's Brock Purdy.
100%. And I think kind of to that point, I mean, it is unfortunate, I mean, I love Tyreek Hill, right? I mean, playing receiver at my level and as well as you playing running back at the same level, empathize with Christian McCaffrey. But it's interesting to see what Christian McCaffrey has done in terms of kind of how he's brought back this kind of 80s smash mouth kind of style of football.
The real way to play running back.
The real way to play running back, and he's also been a weapon in the passing game. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I've said it on multiple of our broadcasts. I love Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel.
yeah,
I love how those guys play football. I was hoping that I was going to see some Leonard Fournette this year. He even took up a space on my fantasy team all year after the Bills assigned him. I was hoping we were going to see a little bit of Deebo. I mean, there's still an opportunity because he's listed on their roster. There's still an opportunity for him to get brought up from the practice squad. But let's call spades here. Those guys are amazing. Those guys are great. And without them, the 49ers don't get there. But without Brock, we're not even talking about the 49ers.
100%. You bring up an interesting point, which I want to touch upon because this has been kind of the back and forth between this Monday night matchup as this preview from all the talking heads on sports media. Well, Lamar Jackson and I believe Tyler Hamilton, I believe the safety's name, and as well as Marlon Humphrey, they all kind of saying, "Oh, yeah, we feel disrespected that the line is set at 5.5 between San Francisco." And Bart Scott said the same thing today on First Take. However, Ryan Clark, countered with Chance Sharp on First Take this morning to say those players you mentioned, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, when they're all healthy with Brock Purdy, with Trent Williams, right? When all those guys are healthy and they've started a game and finished a game together, they are undefeated. That means they have not lost a game throughout all this last season and this season together. When they're all healthy, they have not lost a single game. That to me is remarkable. Number one, okay?
Yeah, it's extremely remarkable. And
Right.
like I said, to me, it's a given that we'll see them in the title game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any reason why we wouldn't.
Right.
I mean, aside from seeding issues, I don't see why we wouldn't see it, the 49ers in the title game. Aside from injury issues, I don't see why we wouldn't see the 49ers in a title game. And I don't think it's close. I don't think the Eagles are as good as the 49ers, and I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are as good as the 49ers.
Nope.
I know the Washington Redskins or Washington Commanders aren't as good as any of those teams. And the teams that are sneaking in, there's a possibility that a couple of these teams are going to sneak in and be sleepers. But at the end of the day, even if you're a sleeper, I really don't think that you have what it takes to take out the 49ers in the playoffs. Yeah, any given Sunday is how we play this game. Everybody knows that. But if we're going off paper and what's been proven already, the 49ers can flip the script and play the game a completely different way than what you are ready for.
100%. Now, I was going to say to that point, one of those sleeper teams, like we talked about the Rams, who won last night, who are now basically in that, I believe, the sixth spot for wild card. They're one of those teams that basically are now kind of vying, to get into the postseason, and they are the 49ers' last regular season matchup at home. Worst case scenario, if the 49ers lose to the Ravens, they obviously aren't going to lose the Commanders next week on New Year's Eve. And in my opinion, when the Rams come to San Francisco, I don't see the 49ers losing to the Rams. Now, with that said, Matt Stafford and the Rams and that offense has been clicking on all cylinders these last
right.
6 weeks. I mean, 6 weeks, I guess. They've been putting up 30 points per game, and they've just been winning. They started the season, I think, was it 1-5 or 2-5 or something ridiculous, and since then they've basically gone 5-2 or 6-1, whatever it is. So I think ultimately now what we're going to see is how well the Niners are equipped. And to your point about health has always been the Achilles heel for the Niners. We've always had injuries every single year. I mean, me and the fans who feel like me as well, but also the players who have been on this podcast for the 49ers, such as Terrell Brown, such as Anthony Booby Dixon, running back, right? They all basically said the same thing. If this team is fully healthy, and you can hear the great like Steve Young, Jerry Rice say it. If Jerry Rice, who came on Fred Warner's podcast yesterday, said this to Fred Warner, he said the health. He's like it's been 29 years since the Niners have won a Super Bowl. The only thing that's holding them back is the health, right? If this team stays fully healthy, I have no reason to believe that they can't go all the way and go and win in dominating fashion as they have been throughout the season, right? Now, with that said, this Baltimore matchup against the Ravens, right? The Ravens are number one in total defense. Lamar Jackson is also an MVP candidate, if not the leader besides Lamar Jackson. Besides Brock Purdy in the AFC. So, and one of the issues, or one of the things which I'm really looking forward to, is the key matchup between, how Steve Wilkes' front four is going to scheme for Lamar Jackson, because obviously, as you know and I know, and anyone's played, when you have a dual threat quarterback, right, you basically have to make sure that you leak and you contain. You don't want to go 5 to 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage and then give him 2 yards of space so that way he can take off, because Lamar Jackson is faster than anyone on the 49ers defense. I will admit that. Okay. So, but with that said, I think that there are areas that the Niners can use defensively to basically slow the Ravens down. Obviously, the linebacking core, as long as you can send a spy on Lamar to make sure that you're tracking his movements and you're staying with him. You also can basically, like we talked about the front four, do a contain, maybe like a zero pressure blitz. But then you also have your secondaries, right? You also have, the secondary. Obviously, you have Moody Ward playing at MVP level, or an All Pro level at least, right? At corner. You also have Jared Brown, the rookie, who has proven to be more than serviceable since Hufanga went out. It's actually interesting to me to see how much better this defense has played since Hufanga has gone out, because of the fact that they've kind of found their identity with Steve Wilkes. Maybe those are part of the growing pains. But it's interesting because Hufanga, and one of the things which was kind of alarming was how the defense played bad last week in terms against the rushing attack of the Cardinals, right? They allowed 438 yards on the ground. But a key reason to that was because Javon Hargrave was injured, as well as Eric Armstead, those two big bodies up front in the center.
Yeah.
Those gaps. So I think with those guys back, as well as with kind of the spy that you can leverage, you can slow down Lamar. You can slow down the Ravens. You just have to make sure that the Niners, as well as Baltimore, they're gonna have to come in, and the Baltimore Ravens even said against the Niners, but they're gonna struggle a little bit. Defense is gonna struggle for sure because of how great the Niners offense has been this year. But I think one of the things that's going to be kind of a key matchup is how well that front four plays up and who dominates the line of scrimmage, and how they're able to game plan scheme for a dual threat quarterback, Lamar Jackson, with a nice pass.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. This game is going to be a huge test for Baltimore.
Yeah.
Beyond almost any other test, this is going to be a huge test for Baltimore, and I would say this game is going to come down to the last possession.
All right, absolutely. Whoever has the ball last. I mean, geez. I mean, it's crazy to think, that these two teams 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago, actually, when Kaepernick was still with the Niners and Harbaugh was coach, and you had Ray Lewis in his last season of the league, they actually did play in the Super Bowl, you know? So there is that history there, right? The Ravens have actually historically have played well against the Niners. However, I do think there's something to be said about Brock Purdy and this team. I think in any other season, I would pick Baltimore to win this game. But because of the way the Niners are playing this year on both sides, actually, not just offensively, but mainly offensively, but with those front four and how they're able to get after quarterbacks and how they're able to kind of stop opposing offenses. Granted that the Niners defense is able to, stand up to the challenge of the rushing attack of Baltimore, as well as being able to, contain Lamar in the pocket and force him not to make those kind of off-key throws. I think that's going to basically, be the difference maker in this matchup. So I think my final score prediction, and so yeah, I mean, I'm not going to spoil if I'm going to be at the game or not, but I think you guys can kind of connect the dots. I'm going to be there. So I'm just back on Instagram, so y'all can, just tune in as well as the YouTube channel. But if I'm going to pick a final score for this game, I'm going to pick the Niners to win 28-21. I think that Brock Purdy will basically have, if the Niners have the ball in their hands last, then I think Brock Purdy can definitely be, the one to orchestrate that engineer drive and basically seal his MVP candidacy. And, I think if Christian McCaffrey as well. But, it's not going to be easy against that number one ranked Baltimore defense. So that's what's going to make this game, like you said, huge test for Baltimore as well as San Francisco. Even though San Francisco has proven, just, over the season, they can play well against winning teams. So I'm looking forward to this matchup. What are you predicting for this matchup on Monday Night Football?
Niners by 3.
Yeah, by 3. So they don't cover. But it's interesting to see how Mike Florio and these guys from Pro Football Talk are saying the Niners are going to completely blow out the Ravens. That would be a pleasant surprise because then it's going to tell me who really the fucking bully is in both conferences. You know what I mean? Because one thing you always talk about is physicality, right? Physicality, physicality, physicality. If the Niners can out physical you, and like we saw Dallas get bullied by Buffalo over the weekend, if the Niners can prove that they're the more physical team than Baltimore, who are basically out two of the running backs, and obviously Mark Andrews not playing right now, the Niners should definitely be able to, impose their will on the Ravens. However, I'm not going to go that far yet because this is the toughest challenge of the season. Niners have historically struggled against mobile quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson is one, if not the best mobile quarterback. He's one of the best outside of Josh Allen right now. So it's going to be interesting. And yeah, I'm going to pick Niners. Yeah, like you and I both take one possession.
The Ravens have a tendency to get super physical with super physical teams.
Uh-huh.
And if they're able to do that successfully, it's going to be a very long down to the end of the tape for each team. I'm still going to go with my Niners with 3. That's my pick. I'm going Niners by 3 at the end.
Yes, sir. So that's it for that game Monday night. Let's go through the rest of the week action. Dallas Cowboys at Miami Dolphins. Obviously, same kind of matchup. Very, very high playoff implications. The Cowboys looking to bounce back from the 31-10 defeat with Buffalo Bills. The Miami Dolphins are obviously looking to continue their momentum. Cortez, bro, what are you seeing for this matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Dallas Cowboys?
It's in Miami, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is kind of a must-win game for Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
But them being in Miami, if Tyreek Hill is even 50% of what Tyreek Hill usually is, then I'd still give it a close game, but I'm going to give Miami the edge by late game touchdown.
By touchdown, yeah. It's so hard for me to predict this game because I don't know what version of Dallas is going to show up.
Dallas is not at home, man. That's what I'm saying. They're not at home, and they seem to be horrible at home. They've lost all of their games on the road.
Yeah. They're 3-4. Those 4 losses on the season are all on the road. Obviously at Jerry World, they're a completely invincible juggernaut, but on the road they just can't seem to get it figured out. So, I
don't think they walk into Miami and stomp Miami at home. I just don't. Not in Hard Rock.
It's so funny you said that because Colin Cowherd said that today, and then J Mac, his co-host, is saying he's like, that's got to be your hottest take that Dallas just goes in there and blows the doors off of them. One thing that's interesting though about both teams is that they're both 1-6 against teams that are over 500. So, I mean, Miami, there's some inefficiencies. I mean, you've seen them kind of struggle. I mean, kind of like Baltimore, you've seen Baltimore struggle against lesser competition like the Chargers as well early on. But I think, to your point, I think Miami should come out with the win. I don't know. I mean, I'm not. I would not be surprised if Dallas wins, though. I'm going to say that. I think Dallas as well. If they come back and they want to prove that they're a legitimate playoff contender, then they're gonna be refocused and retooled for this game. I'm not understand saying that.
I don't think that Dallas doesn't stand a chance. I don't. I think that
Yeah.
Dallas stands a great chance.
Hmm.
I said they just got to prove to me they can win on the road against a great team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. And same with Miami. So this will be a test for both teams. Bills over Chargers. That's pretty much a given. I got Bengals over Steelers. You can feel free to counter if you want, but I don't think so. Commanders, Jets. No, I don't care. Lions at Vikings. Yeah, probably Detroit. Browns at Texans. Texans without CJ, so Browns probably. Packers at Panthers. Yeah, that doesn't matter. Seahawks at Titans. Not an interesting one. Colts at Falcons. Who cares? Jaguars at Bucks. Kind of interesting. Not really. I mean, I guess I'm gonna go Jags. Cardinals at Bears.
The only reason that Jaguars Bucks is interesting is because the Bucks have to win this game to make it in the playoffs.
Absolutely right, and that's why it's interesting. Cardinals at Bears. Sorry, I'm not really interested in that. Patriots at
No,
Broncos.
that's probably going to be a blowout by Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely right. And so, I mean, they should blow out the Cardinals, but I won't be surprised if it's a tough matchup. We'll see what happens. Patriots at Broncos. I mean, Raiders at Chiefs.
I see
Giants
the
at Eagles.
Patriots losing the rest of the season. I don't know if they want to get another win.
No, they probably won't because I mean, I thought that defense was legit, and you saw them struggle against Kansas City. Kansas City also struggled too in that win over the Patriots. And Kansas City does not look like a team that's really ready.
They're falling apart. They're falling apart.
Absolutely, and I think the Giants and Eagles, even if the Eagles bounce back and win this division and get the 2 seed, the Eagles are not going to get the Eagles basically have a cakewalk if they're out, and you've seen how bad they played against playoff teams the last 3 weeks. Their 3-game losing streak, unlike the Niners, wasn't due to injuries. It was just due to the fact that they were just not getting it together. And this team is not as good as they were last year. Shannon Sharp called them a sorry-ass defense. Let me ask you a question about coaching because seems to be a hot topic. Is the Pittsburgh Steelers, is the Mike Tomlin era over in Pittsburgh, and is the Belichick era over in New England?
Belichick era is over in New England. They've declined to bring him back for a contract. He's done after this.
Right.
He's going to finish out the season with his dignity, and then they're going to look for a new young coach.
Yeah.
The Patriots, as we know them, are about to change.
Okay.
Mike Tomlin might get another shot, but it depends on what the Steelers management. The Steelers management might do the same that they did with Bill Cowher and just say, be like, "Hey, you're not a bad coach. It's just that we need a change."
Yeah. And I think ultimately, kind of what to that point, that's, I think that's kind of my thinking too. I think with kind of the Steelers, Brian Clark talked about this. When they won during our high school years as well as kind of our early college years, right? The 2005 season, Lofa Tupu played up against them, goes gets the show, lost. Chucky Akubi was actually on that championship team. Steelers. He was guest of the show, and he won. And then you also had the 2008 season where they ended up winning as well with Mike Tomlin. Then they made a Super Bowl 2 years after that, lost Aaron Rodgers, and then they basically transformed from the steel curtain defense to the killer beast with Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, and Brad Roethlisberger. You kind of saw that shift of leadership, and I think that was kind of what Mike Tomlin allowed because they were still winning games on the arm of a Hall of Fame quarterback, right? But you look at the kind of how they've kind of progressed through and how they matured. Mike Tomlin has a lot of, I want to say, unacceptable kind of locker room behavior slide for that team, and it's just permeated now to where now it's impacting the result on the field. I mean,
the newer guys aren't meshing with the old culture, and that's pretty obvious.
Right.
You have guys like Pickett and Trubisky where like I don't think that either one of them is an actual starting quarterback for that team. Mm-hmm. They kind of both are. You don't know who you're going to get, and it's almost like we've seen them both. I mean, imagine how many games we looked at this season where we've seen them both in the same game.
Yeah.
It ain't the same as a Taysom Hill situation, so let's not bring that up.
Right. And I think kind of to your point, that's what Ryan Clark said too. He said they had Mean Joe Green, they had these guys from the years past show up, back when they were playing, and every player in that locker room felt connected to those 5 to 6 Lombardis. And that's how they won their 5th and 6th Lombardi in the 2000s. Now you look at at this current team now, there is no connection between the players of now and those championships. bar some exceptions, like a TJ Watt, as well as kind of a I want to say Cam Hayward, but really, I mean the players all around don't really feel like George Pickens. He doesn't like blocking. That seems to be an issue. You look at the Niners offense, how Kyle Shanahan makes. You see Brandon Ayuk running 40 yards down the field to make a downfield block for Christian McCaffrey. You see Debo doing the same thing. You see Kittle not giving a fuck, if he gets the ball or if he has to, take a man's soul. He will
Blocking his
do
butt
either,
off.
right? Exactly. And so, I mean, and as a running back, that's your dream offense to play under Kyle Shanahan. But if you're a running back in Pittsburgh under Mike Tomlin and you have George Pickens and these guys basically saying, yeah, we don't really see a value in blocking. Why do we have to block? We just want to catch the ball. Then, and I mean, I remember when I played, in college, my receivers coach said a receiver who blocks is more valuable than a receiver who can catch. Because if you're a receiver and you're on the field, everyone knows you can catch, right? But the dirty work, right? And Shannon Sharp said like he wasn't a great blocker, but he'd still get it done. That's why in my book, Travis Kelce is not the greatest tight end of all time. Travis Kelce is one of the greatest flex tight ends, receiving tight ends, right? Up there with Tony Gonzalez. But he never blocked. He's always flexed out at wide. He's never actually doing the dirty work that a
Yeah.
Gronk or a Kittle could do.
I mean, look at the argument that they had with each other in Pittsburgh. You're not gonna block for me, bro? Nah. That's how it went. No.
Yeah.
I could have got injured, man. Well, you not blocking is gonna get me injured. That's you.
Yeah.
Not me.
That's
Hit
simple.
the gym. Hit the gym.
Hit the gym. I mean, and blocking isn't just you basically, using your hands. You use your whole body. Like, I mean, for like me when I was a little twig, I mean, you just, you sacrifice yourself and, you get ran over, but you do what you need to do to make the play work, right? Whether
I
it's on
take
special
on
team.
300+ pounders all the time
Absolutely. I mean, that actually
to
happened
make
when I was
sure
on
that our
kickoff. I was like,
quarterback is
what in the
safe.
fuck is this fucking big ass mammoth doing in front of me on kickoff? No, what is he doing returning? And so, I mean, and obviously I got thrown to the ground, which is fine, but you just kind of you eat that, you accept it.
The
It's part of the
Chicago
game.
Bears taught everybody a lesson about big guys that can move.
Yeah.
And I don't know why since it's been so many years since 1985, 38 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
38 years since 85. And
Yeah.
people are still standing around wondering why a big guy can move. Like Fridge was out there catching passes against the Packers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fridge was out there catching passes.
That's what I miss, that old school smash mouth style football where the running back would basically be the key difference maker for teams,
Well, look what guys are doing. You're on the 1 yard line and everybody's lining up the spread offense.
Yeah,
Except
exactly.
the Cowboys. I mean, not the Cowboys, not the Eagles.
No, I mean, well, it's also Niners. Niners are basically, even if they line up at the spread, the ball is going to 23. I mean, that's their first option, or 19, because he can see, they move him around. You know what I mean? Laterally, Kyle Shanahan moves him around, so that way if he needs to pitch back, just like in the backfield, he has that option, right? So that's, I mean, and to me, that's why, again, it's Christian McCaffrey and the Niners, and I think we only have 3 minutes. I just want to say this, the old school smash mouth style football is now showing how effective it is in the current modern day NFL, with the rule changes, like you mentioned, where basically it favors a passing offense because of the rule changes to protect the quarterback. And I absolutely love it because I love seeing that kind of football.
It's the best kind of football to watch.
It is. Absolutely. That's why I'm hyped for Monday. I'm going to be there. But all right, you got 2 minutes left. My co-host, any final closing thoughts?
Hey guys, it's the holiday season. Don't know if we'll see you again. I just want to say, happy holidays to everyone's family that's out there. As much peace to the world as we can possibly bring. And don't waste your time because you never know how much of it you got.
100%. Merry Christmas to anyone who celebrates. Happy holidays. We'll probably be back maybe next week. If not, we'll see you guys in the new year. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Digitally Dreaming Out the Gridiron podcast. And we'll be talking soon. Take care.